I held him within 5 minutes of him being born.
Are you surprised by the love you feel for baby Eric?
I actually said to Lauren beforehand, what if I liked the dogs more than him?
Simon Cowell's world has always been built on hard truths, bold opinions, and a no-nonsense attitude. But something recently shifted within the usually stoic judge, his son's heartbreaking diagnosis. The man known for his unrelenting criticism is now navigating a deeply personal journey, one that has left fans and insiders alike stunned. What we've uncovered about Simon's emotional transformation will leave you speechless. This story isn't just about a father, it's about a side of Simon Cowell no one ever expected to see. Eric's birth and the beginning of change. On February 14, 2014, Simon Cowell's life underwent a transformation that no one could have predicted. The world knew him as the sharp-tongued, no-nonsense entertainment mogul, the man who made careers with a single word. For years, Simon had built his empire, known for his ruthlessness and sharp critiques on American Idol, The X Factor, and Britain's Got Talent. A bachelor at heart, Simon had always been open about his lack of interest in having children. He had said, with unwavering conviction, that he was too old, too set in his ways, and too busy with his career to even think about fatherhood. But then, everything changed the day Eric Philip Cowell was born. With the birth of his son, Simon experienced an overwhelming shift in perspective, and the man who once lived for his shows, record deals, and business ventures now found himself consumed by thoughts of fatherhood. In one of the rarest moments of vulnerability Simon has ever shared publicly, he spoke about the intense love he felt when he first saw the scan of his unborn child. "After I lost my parents, I genuinely felt I would never feel that kind of love for anyone ever again. I thought that was it until I saw the scan of him for the first time. From that moment, I saw the scan and I was like, that is it. I'm besotted." Eric wasn't just any celebrity baby. He carried Simon's father's name, continuing a legacy that meant the world to Simon. His heart was no longer focused solely on his career and public life, but had found a new home in this tiny human who would change everything. In a way, Eric became the anchor in Simon's life that grounded him in ways the flashy world of television and music never could. A father's growing concerns. As Eric grew older, Simon's protective instincts began to intensify. It wasn't the typical parental worry that every parent goes through, the kind that keeps you up at night worrying about minor concerns. Simon's anxiety was about the bigger picture. There was something about Eric's development that didn't feel quite right. Simon had been surrounded by people all his life, analyzing behaviors and understanding what made people tick. As a judge, he'd become an expert at reading people's reactions and responses. Yet when it came to Eric, he couldn't quite put his finger on what was happening. Simon first noticed when Eric didn't start speaking like other children did at his age. While most children were beginning to form words and simple sentences by the time they turned 2, Eric remained mostly silent. The worry began as a faint murmur in the back of Simon's mind, and while he tried to rationalize it by thinking Eric was just a late bloomer, a part of him couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper might be at play. The silence was accompanied by other signs that made Simon uneasy. Eric would often react differently in chaotic public settings, something that would seem normal for many children, but to Simon, it felt like more. Eric would cover his ears or look visibly distressed in loud, busy environments. It wasn't the behavior of a child who just wanted a break from noise. It felt like something more profound. But Simon was determined to focus on the positives. Eric was bright, perceptive, and alert. He could understand complex concepts and seemed capable of grasping things far beyond his age. But when it came to socializing and speaking, there was something holding him back. As these signs continued, Simon's sleepless nights increased. Instead of focusing on the bright lights of TV sets and the fast pace of his career, he began to focus on Eric's future. The more he researched child development and the struggles of other children who didn't follow the standard developmental timeline, the more questions he had. It was as though his world had shifted entirely. His son's future was now his main concern, and he would do anything to make sure Eric received everything he needed to thrive. Even more challenging for Simon was the fact that Eric had such immense potential. He wasn't just different, he was gifted, but that very intelligence complicated things for Simon. Eric wasn't fitting into a neat mold, and Simon wasn't sure how to approach the situation. He realized that the traditional milestones, the usual checkboxes that parents tick off, weren't enough to measure Eric's growth. Eric wasn't on anyone's timeline. He was creating his own. This realization was tough for Simon. who had spent his life measuring success in terms of fame, recognition, and business achievements. But now, his focus was solely on Eric's happiness, well-being, and future success on his own terms. The world watches. As Simon navigated the personal challenges of fatherhood, the world around him remained largely unaware of the struggle he was enduring. To the public, Simon Cowell was still the judge with the biting remarks, the mogul who could make or break careers with a single word. But behind the scenes, Simon was becoming a very different person. He began making major adjustments to his professional life, focusing on his family over his career. He turned down projects that would take him away from Eric for long periods, reshaping his schedule to prioritize his son's needs. What seemed like typical new parent behavior to his business partners was, in fact, Simon's commitment to being there for Eric in ways that transcended his high-profile career. While Simon was making these private changes, the media started picking up on the transformation in his public persona. They noticed that Simon, the notoriously hard-edged TV judge, had become more relaxed, more present, and more in tune with his emotions. Eric's presence had undeniably softened him, and Simon didn't shy away from showing the world that he was a proud father. The media began celebrating the father-son moments, but they missed the deeper story. Simon wasn't just becoming a softer person, he was stepping into a new role as an advocate for a son who experienced the world differently. Behind the carefully crafted public moments with Eric, Simon was quietly working with experts, seeking answers to the questions that kept him awake at night. He was consulting with child specialists, reading books on child development, and learning everything he could to ensure Eric's future would be as bright as possible. Even as Simon adjusted his life for his son, he knew that the road ahead would be challenging, not just for Eric, but for him as a father trying to navigate uncharted territory. The world may have seen Simon as a successful mogul, but he was now learning that success wasn't just about professional triumphs. It was about embracing the journey of fatherhood, no matter how uncertain or difficult it became. The turning point. On a seemingly perfect family vacation in 2017, Simon Cowell's world was shaken in a way that would change his life and his relationship with his son forever. What should have been a relaxing getaway quickly became a series of eye-opening moments. Eric, at that time a 4-year-old child, had always been sensitive to changes in routine. But during this vacation, Simon began to notice that Eric's reactions were more intense and concerning than ever before. New environments, the sounds, the smells, the routines seemed to overwhelm Eric more than usual. Simon watched as Eric became visibly distressed during a dinner at a resort, covering his ears and rocking back and forth, unable to cope with the combination of music, conversation, and clinking dishes. His child, who had always been somewhat quiet and sensitive, was now reacting in ways that were far beyond the normal bounds of childhood behavior. Simon tried his best to comfort Eric, but the boy seemed unreachable, locked in his own world of sensory overload. In that moment, Simon made a decision that would set the course for the rest of their lives. They would seek professional help. It wasn't out of concern that something was wrong with Eric, but rather a deep desire to understand how they could better support him. The realization that Eric might need more specialized help didn't come easily to Simon, who had always been in control and accustomed to handling the unpredictable nature of the entertainment world. But this was different. This was his son, and he was determined to do everything in his power to ensure Eric had the opportunity to thrive, regardless of the challenges he faced. In December 2018, the decision to seek professional evaluation led Simon and his partner Lauren to a pediatrician's office. There, Simon sat with a team of specialists who had been observing Eric's development for several months. The words spoken by the lead developmental pediatrician would forever alter Simon's life. Eric shows significant characteristics consistent with autism spectrum disorder, ASD. His challenges with verbal communication, sensory sensitivities, and his need for routine all point to this diagnosis. The weight of those words hit Simon harder than he expected. He'd known the possibility of this diagnosis for a while, but hearing it spoken out loud made it real. For Simon, it wasn't about the diagnosis itself, it was about the implications for Eric's future. Simon was overwhelmed with questions. What did this mean for Eric's potential? Could he still lead a fulfilling life? And perhaps most heartbreaking of all, how would the world perceive Eric? The pediatrician assured Simon that with the right support and interventions, Eric could absolutely thrive. The doctor explained that many children with autism go on to lead successful, fulfilling lives. For Simon, that reassurance was both a relief and a challenge. Eric would need specialized support, therapies, and a different approach to life that was tailored to his unique needs. What Simon learned about Eric's strengths was encouraging. The diagnostic report noted that Eric was incredibly bright, with remarkable abilities in pattern recognition and visual processing. He was able to remember complex sequences and showed intense focus on subjects that interested him. While Eric faced challenges in verbal communication and social interactions, he had gifts that would serve him well as he grew older, with the right support. Simon realized that Eric's brain functioned differently, and it was up to him to adapt their world to meet Eric's needs. This revelation also prompted Simon to reframe his perception of parenthood. It wasn't about the typical milestones and experiences most parents expected. Instead, it was about finding joy in the moments of connection they could share, no matter how unconventional. Eric wasn't broken or flawed. He was simply different, and that difference was valuable and beautiful. The public struggle and new responsibilities. As Simon and Lauren began processing the implications of Eric's diagnosis, the outside world was largely unaware of the internal struggle Simon faced. While Simon was known as the sharp-tongued, no-nonsense mogul of the entertainment industry, at home he was a father trying to make sense of the new reality before him. Eric was still a young child, and the public hadn't seen much of him. A few moments of Eric's public appearances, such as the time Simon took him on Britain's Got Talent, showed a softer side of the mogul, but these moments were carefully curated. Behind the scenes, Simon was working tirelessly to create an environment where Eric could feel safe, supported, and understood. Simon's shift in focus didn't go unnoticed by those close to him. His colleagues, business partners, and even the media started picking up on his transformation. He began turning down projects that would take him away from Eric for long periods. His colleagues assumed it was just typical new parent behavior, but for Simon, it went beyond that. He wasn't simply adjusting his schedule. He was fundamentally restructuring his life to ensure that Eric received the support he needed. But the most challenging aspect was the speculation. As rumors swirled in celebrity gossip circles and online forums about Eric's development, Simon felt increasingly protective. Though some people tried to reassure him, Simon knew that the conversation about Eric's well-being had already begun without his consent. There was a growing need to address the speculation, but Simon was torn between protecting Eric's privacy and raising awareness about autism in a way that would not turn Eric's personal journey into public entertainment. The struggle was difficult, and Simon felt isolated. He was learning about autism, reading books, attending therapy sessions, and consulting with specialists, all while navigating the public's curiosity. The weight of responsibility was heavy. Every decision about Eric's schooling, therapy, and socialization felt monumental, and Simon knew that the choices he made would shape his son's future. As much as Simon wanted to protect Eric, he also wanted to advocate for him and ensure that others understood the challenges his son faced. But navigating the line between privacy and advocacy was not easy. The pain of watching people misunderstand Eric and the world he lived in was a constant reminder of the difficulties they would face as a family. Advocacy and acceptance. In the months following Eric's diagnosis, Simon found a new sense of purpose. He was no longer just the entertainment mogul known for making bold decisions and shaping careers. He was now the father of a child who needed advocacy and support. Simon took on the role of an advocate for Eric's needs, ensuring that Eric's world was designed in a way that catered to his unique needs while allowing him to experience success. Simon's Malibu home was restructured with Eric's sensory sensitivities in mind. He spared no expense in creating an environment where Eric could feel comfortable and safe. Each day was planned meticulously, with routines that prioritized stability and predictability. Eric's therapy sessions became a fundamental part of their daily lives, and Simon made sure that he was actively involved in his son's development. As Simon adjusted to his new role as a father of a child with autism, he came to understand that the journey wasn't about solving a problem or fixing something that was broken. It was about accepting Eric for who he was and embracing the way he saw and interacted with the world. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments of grief, but Simon's love for Eric remained steadfast. Simon's decision to address Eric's autism publicly was a turning point in his journey as a father. Though it was painful to share their struggles with the world, Simon knew that by doing so, he could help break down the stigma surrounding autism and create a more accepting environment for families like his. Through his own vulnerability, Simon hoped to encourage others to embrace their children's differences, just as he had learned to embrace Eric's. The diagnosis changed Simon's world in ways he could never have imagined, but it also made him more determined than ever to give Eric the future he deserved. Eric wasn't just his son. He was a reminder that there is no one right way to experience life, and that sometimes the most valuable lessons come from embracing the differences that make each person unique. The leak and the public scrutiny. It began when a tabloid published photos of Eric experiencing a sensory overload at a public event, accompanied by commentary that completely misrepresented what was happening. Simon Cowell, long protective of his son, realized that staying silent was no longer an option. Misinformation was spreading, and the media had turned a private moment into a public spectacle, filled with speculation about Eric's health and development. Simon knew he had to act. In a carefully worded public statement, he confirmed Eric's autism diagnosis and emphasized that his son was a joyful, deeply loved child who simply saw the world differently. He asked for privacy and compassion, hoping to shield Eric from further scrutiny. The response was swift. Many parents of autistic children, advocates, and fans offered support and appreciation for Simon's honesty. But along with that support came relentless media attention. Every move Eric made was analyzed, his behavior picked apart in headlines. For Simon, it was both uplifting and exhausting. Though he couldn't pull Eric out of the spotlight completely, Simon chose to use his platform to raise awareness. He partnered with autism organizations, promoted understanding, and advocated for early intervention, determined to turn a painful invasion of privacy into a mission for change. The struggle for privacy and advocacy. In the months that followed Eric's diagnosis, Simon Cowell found himself torn between raising awareness and protecting his son's privacy. He struggled with how much to share, knowing the media often sensationalized Eric's journey rather than focusing on the broader message of autism awareness. Despite his efforts to advocate for understanding, Simon watched as Eric became a subject of public speculation, his story distorted by outsiders who didn't know him. The real pain came not just from the misunderstanding, but from knowing Eric was being shaped by the world's assumptions. Simon stressed the importance of seeing the individual behind the diagnosis, urging for greater inclusion and compassion. But defending Eric while educating the public took an emotional toll. Amid this pressure, Simon experienced a personal transformation. Fame took a back seat to fatherhood, and he began viewing life through Eric's eyes. He realized that his expectations of being a typical dad, teaching his son to ride a bike or taking spontaneous trips, didn't match Eric's needs. Instead, he focused on creating a stable, supportive world where Eric could thrive. Ultimately, Simon came to see autism not as a limitation, but as a different, equally meaningful way of experiencing life. By letting go of what he thought fatherhood should be, Simon embraced what it truly was: loving, learning, and walking alongside his son in a journey guided by unconditional love. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this journey through Simon Cowell's transformation as a father, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Have you had to adjust your expectations about someone you love? How did you navigate those changes? We'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.